website, go to nesbac.org, and then you'll click on the member button that's here in red, and that'll take you to this sign-in page, and you can go from there. And if you have any problems, just let me know. I may need to reset your password. Sometimes that happens, so just let me know if you have any problems there. And if you could do that, I'll have all of the self-study information up by hopefully the 5th of December. And if you guys can try to log into the website by then, that'd be really helpful for me, so that everybody's not trying to do it all at once at the end or something like that. So.
And I put a link in the chat, so you are more than welcome to do that now and make sure you're able to get in.
Yeah, just shoot me an email if you can't, and I'll reset your password. And this is just a timetable for both self-study due dates and site visitor due dates. So self-studies are due to the office by the programs on the 1st. And like I said, I'll have the information up on the member website page on the 5th or by the 5th. And then you'll have a review period for the self-study from the 5th to the 31st. The self-studies are due the 31st and then of December. And then so the site visitors will then receive those self-study review, or the self-studies reviews will be uploaded by the 5th of January. And then the 10th through the April 20th will be the site visits when their site visits are taking place. And thankfully, everyone has scheduled their site visit already, which is yay. So thank you very much for that. It's a load off of me, and it's good to get those in place. So I really appreciate that. May 31st, all the site visit reports are due, the final reports, along with the PowerPoints. And then this is just a little breakdown of the reporting process. You'll have 2 weeks after the site visit happens to get the draft to the program director, and then the program director has 2 weeks to get their comments back to you. And then the final report will be due 2 weeks after that, hopefully, or by May 31st.
Leslie, can we pause right here?
Sure.
Because ProHack, if you can get a lot of your draft report, like all of the floofy stuff, ready for your site visit, and then you really have, because there's some background pieces that you kind of summarize and you put into that report, right? You get all the floofy stuff into the report before you actually visit. Then the content of the report, you can actually, and I've done it, you can do it, you can complete it in the airport while you're waiting for your flight. So it shouldn't necessarily need to take 2 weeks. And if you have a really busy practitioner or academic schedule, just highly recommend you get it a lot of prep done before, and in the airport, just get that draft done. And Anne-Marie had a similar experience.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So then the coordination and communication among the self-study reviewers and site team program directors. Like I said, they'll complete their reviews by December 31st, and I'll, if there's any communication that needs to happen among everybody, I'm kind of, I'm the lead person, CC me on everything, please. And that just allows me to keep track of everyone and make sure everything is happening as it needs to. And again, that's just the same thing. I just wanted to note that our undergraduate guideline requirements, the undergraduate programs may be using either the 2016 requirements or the new 2023 requirements this year. Everybody has to be on board with the new requirements by December next year. So I will let you know which ones programs are using once I find out, and then you can go on from there. And we'll be looking at both on this PowerPoint. And then the graduate self-studies, they'll be written based on the 2012 guidelines, and then the new competencies will go out in January, and so the next self-studies will be done on that version.
Leslie, can we pause at this one?
Yep.
So I want to interject about, so, we have the checklist spreadsheets that I'm sure those of you that have done self-study reviews have used, or you have to have used them. Currently, we have the one that's from the 2016 guideline or requirements for undergrad. Leslie is going to be updating that for
It's done.
Done. Okay, great.
Yep.
So there will be 2 sets. Make sure you use the right one. Because, there are obviously notable changes in how you would want to fill that out. And then the graduate checklist is the same one from 2012.
So this is a little bit more detail about the self-study reviewers. Just remembering that, this is essential and a valuable part of the process, because the site visitors really rely on whatever you note in of concern or in the self-study review. So please to make sure you really take the time to identify any program weaknesses that need to be addressed, and really drill down into the curriculum. Make sure that you're and especially on the curriculum part, make sure that the catalog matches the programs, what the program has presented, because that's super important. And then
I will add also that this is really, we can't underscore how important the self-study reviewers are at this current, like in the December timeframe, because they are the first opportunity to raise red flags if a program is struggling or aren't going to meet the requirements, so that your vice chairs can take a closer look at it. And that then the site visit team has a way in advance heads up, so that they can be reviewing the self-study as well earlier than the plane ride there, which none of you should be doing, by the way, but sometimes that happens. So it's really important. You all play a really important role in this December timeframe of reviewing these self-studies.
see, Jason has his hand up there.
Yeah, Leslie, I just wanted to note, with our undergraduate programs potentially working off of 2 different sets of guidelines, what's going to be the best way for our self-study reviewers to recognize exactly which guidelines they wrote their self-study to? Is that
I will let everybody know.
Okay.
What's going on there. Yeah. And also just wanted to flag that if you do see any red flag issues that would, be kind of a reaccreditation issues, please let me know, especially if the table 2s or the course comparison tables are not filled out correctly. We can address that earlier rather than later, so it's ready for the site visitors. So yeah, if anything like that needs to be addressed, just let me know as soon as possible. Right. So, and this is just a little outline of, what you should focus on, and, providing an objective third-party view. And just an example that we've used in the past is analyzing them like a detective would, and comparing the self-study with EHAC requirements or guidelines, and definitely using the curriculum and self-study checklists for both undergraduate and graduate programs.
Can I
Go ahead.
Does anybody have questions as to what the University College Catalog online is? I don't want to assume that our practitioners know exactly what that is. Okay, Matt's shaking his head no. Okay.
Yeah, if you could explain it a bit, it'd be great.
Yeah. Basically, so every university has a course catalog that is, in essence, the contract with the student, the year that they enter any particular degree program, they have set out degree requirements. They might be very specific classes that need to be taught or taken, or a number of electives or whatever, but it's the contract with the student on what they need to meet in order to receive that particular degree. Now, it's often, well, not often, I should say, sometimes what programs put on their website, like their own department's websites, are a little different than what's in the university contract with the student. And so you really need to do the due diligence of seeking out the university course catalog and making sure that the requirements that are included in the self-study are in fact those that the university says the students must have. And we've found a number of times that they're a little off, and usually it happens when a program has maybe dropped a required course and now they're making an elective, or they've changed their required course. So that's just something that everyone should be going and searching out the university contract with the student. We ask the programs to put that in their self-studies, so it shouldn't be like an onerous process. They should have a link in there. Any questions on that, or any of the academics want to like clarify anything I've not said correctly?
Let me just add, I just sent this to you on a message, but in case other people don't know, a lot of this universities, they'll have it under course catalog, but I'm finding more and more, they have it under a bulletin. So you just search
Yeah.
their website for the bulletin and it'll be under that.
Okay. I had not run into that terminology, so thank you.
Yeah, we switched to that. It's kind of dumb, but
Okay. So the supporting documents, once you log into the member website, you'll see all of these self-study reviews and resource documents on that page. And they're all of these are linked from this PowerPoint, so you can use this if you want to. But they're all also on the member page on the website. There's the 2016 undergraduate requirements and the checklist for those requirements, and then the 2023 requirements and the checklist for those requirements, graduate guidelines, and then the graduate competency checklists. And I'll just bring up, well, I have that shown in a little bit, but anyway, so these are here, or you can go to the member website too. Yeah, so that's the end of the self-study part. So I'll just bring up this right now because that would be helpful to see.
Yeah, what the summary looks
Yeah.
like. Because we want you to fill out the spreadsheet. That's really important. But then we want you to summarize any issues, red flags or yellow flags or whatever, that you think came up in your self-study review, so that the site visitors can be like from an email format, can very quickly key in on, although they all should be opening. This is for you site visitor teams, should be opening all the checklists as well and reviewing those in detail.
Hang on a second. Here we go.
We do not see a change in your document. On
Yeah, I'm getting there. It's not because I'm sharing. It's a little bit it's being difficult. Okay, so this is the 2016. I'm not sharing anymore, huh? Or can you see that?
Oh, yes, the checklist.
Yeah, okay. So this is the 2016 undergraduate review checklist. So this is there are two tabs down here. This is a curriculum tab. So it is aligned with the requirement. So it's just boom, boom, boom. You go down the table 2 portion of the requirements, and it's just listed as they're aligned. The requirements in this checklists are aligned, so it's pretty simple. And
it's more than the table 2. the table 2 is the technical areas.
Yeah.
So as
Well,
you go through your self-study, you get to the curriculum that's involved in the program, then you hit the natural sciences. That's what they'll call out first. So you can just
right.
and check it all off. And we
Yeah.
prefer that you put the classes, the class names in the, let's see, what column B?
Yep. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Column, the second column. And then if it's missing or something, you can note that in this column.
Or because all of the syllabi will be included in the self-study. Let's say you pull up, the EPI course and you're like, this isn't an EPI course. What is going on with this? Writing whatever you want, and whatever your concerns are in column C is really important. And, taking a peruse through the syllabi is an important part of the self-study review.
And if I remember correctly, on this check sheet, it also indicates if there's a lab requirement.
Yes, for the natural sciences, you'll see
Okay.
it says micro with lab, biological sciences with lab. All of them require labs until you get to physics. Physics is the only natural science that is not required to take a lab. And then the additional science courses if they're making up the credits. Can you click on the self-study tab, please, Leslie?
Yep.
So you'll note that every single one of the rows is based off of what is in the self-study template that they are completing. So it should theoretically follow the order of the narrative that you read in the self-study. And I say theoretically because some do not, for whatever amazing reason they choose not to, and they make it harder on everybody. But we tried to streamline this. And then, of course, a number of years ago, we created the self-study document template itself to try and get away from some of the reformatting that people were doing and making it harder for reviewers. So this should be pretty streamlined at this point. If you find areas that's not streamlined for whatever reason, if you could bring that to Leslie's attention, that would be great.
Can you go to the top of that table? I saw a misspelled word, related, column, the third column.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Row 3, column C, related is not spelled correctly.
In the
oh,
header.
got it. Got it. Yeah. Well, it doesn't matter if I fix it here, so I can't. I'll fix it. I'll fix it.
Okay. Any questions on self-study review or the template that you will use? And of course, the 2023 one has a different template that you'll use. And then the graduate will also have a different, not template, excuse me, spreadsheet that you'll use for both of those.
The one thing I remember finding very helpful when I was going, back to it is to make sure I jotted down the page number where I found that information in case I needed to refer back to it.
Yes, and especially for problems, that's super helpful for the site visit team to be like, oh, on page 15, they mentioned X, but on 23, they contradicted themselves. And so then the site visit team can take that information to the site visit and go, which one of it is it? Like, let's fix this. Okay. Great, we're zooming along here. So we're done with
Okay.
self-study. Oh, Jason, go ahead.
Oh yeah, sorry about the interruption. I know I want to keep zooming along, but we were talking about both self-study and site visitor supporting documents on this slide. And I'm trying to recall, I know a lot of energy went into preparing a list of questions that correspond with the proposed agenda. So when our site visitors go, they know exactly, it's basically fill in the blanks, who was at this meeting and what are the questions that we should be asking, or what are the things that we're trying to get at. I recall having that for last year's site visit, and it was on our site, but I wasn't sure if you or Leslie could speak to that document or point our site visitors in that direction.
Yeah, it's on down the slideshow, Jason.
Yeah.
It's in there.
Maybe this particular slide should really only read or be titled self-study
Yeah.
supported documents and not site visitor, because there's, other information coming up here. But thank you, Jason.
I'll button up. Sorry.
No, you're fine.
No
That
worries.
was
No worries. Great. Yeah. So just to review, there are 2 sheets. You complete both sheets, and that's important to remember that those 2 are there. So moving on to the site visits. Again, site visitors should really focus on using the self-study. It is a essential tool for preparing for the site visit. And please, like Tanya was mentioning, adequately prepare, be prepared in time. We tried to, this is on next slides, but we were encouraging the site visit lead to have a meeting with the site visitors at least a week prior to the visit, if possible. A lot of people just have they meet when they get to the site visit location, and that's fine too. But if you can do it earlier, that seems to work better. And if there are any questions, you can get back to me, or actually communicate with the program director too. So and then Tanya, I'll let you speak to the highlighted part.
One's highlighted because everybody does everybody takes this a little differently. Let's put it that way. Academics on the line. When you go to review another program, refrain from saying things or starting sentences with, well, at my program, we do it this way. Just don't. You're there to really understand what they do, and just take it all in and report back to council. I've been on and have been on the receiving end of a number of, site visits, and that's done kind of, there are some that do it very well and you never know that they're from another program, or it's very minimal, and others where you hear it like every time they want to have a conversation about something. It starts with, at my institution, we do it this way. So just know it's not a comparison between your own program and the one you're visiting. Rather, you're there to collect the information so that council can make the best decision for that accreditation application. And then, practitioners, if you hear your academics doing a bit too much of the self-comparison, you might want to poke them in the ribs, kick them under the table, give them some message, whatever, because we do all like to talk about how great our programs are. So I'll leave it at that. That's why it's highlighted. We should refrain. And, probably the some people that really needed that message are not currently on this call.
I can say I've been on the receiving end of that, so I understand where you're coming from.
All right. So actually conducting site visits, the site lead, there's a site visit lead, and that's listed in your, I'll make sure that's listed in your list of people. And then they've already been in contact with you, so you know. And like I mentioned, if conducting a pre-site meeting would be really great if you can do that. This is a link to the review or the site visit protocol and reporting explanation. This is a really long document, but it would be helpful for you to at least have a brief review just to show you it, because it just outlines why we're doing it, why you're here. It's the whole process, and it's all in one place. So I would appreciate it if you have a look. And then again, red flags in the self-study is a good thing to, a lot of people like to determine a division of roles during the site visit. So like the practitioner will have a role and then the academic will be focused on the curriculum or something like that. And then there is at the end, the site visit lead will prepare the report template draft and share that with their fellow site visitors. There's a draft template that's provided. And again, that's on the website. And then and the site visit leads will then produce the final draft for the final report, and then the PowerPoint for the presentation at the annual meeting. And again, the PowerPoint does not include a recommendation. It's just a layout of what happened during the site visit. Have anything to add, Tanya?
Yeah, keeping the recommendation off of the report and off of the slides, because that's something that you do as a site visit team in person when you present at the EHAC annual meeting. And you really want to keep it out of the writing, because there may be points of discussion or clarification that occurs during the council meeting that actually changes your recommendation. I've seen that happen a number of times. So you want to leave that off and actually do it in person based on all of the information you've been able to collect to the point of the annual meeting. Sometimes there are issues, and even all the way up until the last minute, the program addresses those issues, and then that changes whatever you walk into that presentation thinking about your recommendation.
All right.
Did we want to go over the questions document? So in the members section there, or do you have a slide?
Yeah, there's a slide. We're getting to it. So this is just a summary of what we just talked about before. Pre-visit meeting, conduct the site visit over 2 days. This may or may not take place. Actually, we just approved as a board the use of per diem rates, but I need to get that approved by the council. So stay tuned if that actually happens or not. So hopefully it will, but I'll let you know of how that's going to work out. If it doesn't work out, we'll still need to collect receipts for everything, for dinner or for meals and travel and car rental or whatever. If it does work out, then we'll just have to collect receipts for flights and car rental and lodging. I'll do my best. So, and again, like I just went over all this, but that's just a good summary here. Okay, and then this is some supporting documents for the, this should just say site visitor, sorry. Again, this is the site visit protocol and reporting explanation. These are letters that have already been sent out. So I didn't include them here. And then conducting the site visit, Jason, this is what you're referring to here. I'll just, if I can bring that up.
I have it up if you want me to share it.
Okay, I have it right here.
Okay.
Going on.
I do want to stress that this is a template that you can change the questions based on your review of the self-study, places where you want to, have more emphasis on. I know that some people in the past have sent the questions out to the programs. I'm not sure that that's the best thing to do, but I'm like totally willing to hear from people that sent the questions out and have an alternative viewpoint on that. This is really meant to be to prepare you and not necessarily to prepare the program for the questioning. Because if I were to send questions out to the program, I would want a different format, and I would probably want to clean up the grammar and other things that are within this document.
Okay. Anything else? And this is the brief outline of the agenda as well.
And this
Wonderful.
also is really up to your site visit team, because there are, like, if you could show the agenda again.
Is it not there?
Yes.
Okay.
For example, in a small program, or for a small program, an hour to 2 hours with the program director and department chair may not, you may not need an hour. You might only need a half an hour, because you're really looking at spending most of the time with the program director or a coordinator, as like I'm called a coordinator, not a director of our undergrad. And the department chair is not going to give you a full hour of their time. And maybe you don't have, that many questions to ask that person either. So you can modify this as you see fits your particular site visit for the program that you're reviewing.
All right. Any questions there? All right. Great. So again, here's that there's a site visit report example. So there's one that, or a template, I'm sorry, first. And the template is a combined template for both undergrad and graduate. So obviously, if you're just doing graduate or undergraduate, just answer those appropriate questions. And then there's an example that you can have a look at. And then there's a PowerPoint template. There's only 3 slides that are allowed for that presentation. And then, like I said, here's the travel expense report, and I'll give you the appropriate one for whatever we are able to use. And then I'll be sending, this is important, I'll be sending a peer review form that's on the Google. It's a Google form when all this is done. And if you could fill that out, it's really helpful for us, in doing this training and seeing where we can make improvements, or where we're doing things right. Okay, so Jason, you're up.
All right, thanks, Leslie. Thanks, Tanya. I can't say enough over the opportunities I've had in the last decade to work with this council, seeing how much energy and effort has gone into these checklists for the self-study reviews, to the templates for the self-study review summary reports, all the guidance documents that are out there and available for our folks to use is tremendous. And I hope you avail yourself of the full suite of products that they've got out there now. So ultimately, our self-study reviewers, for the uninitiated, this is essentially like a desk audit. You're going to take a look at this self-study that the program has put together, and make sure that they've completed it, and then also look for evidence. And so this is that first opportunity as a self-study reviewer to identify any considerations or concerns. They keep using the term red flags. And so that's what you'll put as you use that checklist. There's a section in there for the comments. You want to refer to the page number of the self-study of where you may be coming up against issues or lack of evidence or just missing information. And again, heard the term used of, hey, this is the dream team working on the self-study or the site visit. Please consider me, a little bit of depth on the bench, as it were. If you need to call somebody, phone a friend. If you're working with undergraduate programs, reach out to me early and often in the process. I'll be glad to help. As you see here under the accreditation criteria, A through F, I mean, that's going to come straight down the line in that self-study review checklist. You'll go block by block, basically sharing your opinion of the evidence that's provided in the self-study as being sufficient. And then, again, for our site visit teams, you need to be very acquainted with the self-study you're, on your own. In particular, your site visit leads. You heard Tanya talk about how there's an opportunity to go ahead and kind of get a straw man put together for your report. Well, you should be looking at that closely enough and taking that information out and preparing the report to a point that, you've done that as well. So I would caution any of our site visit folks to think that they don't need to be looking at the self-study. They need to be just as acquainted with the self-study as the reviewers. But, the reviewers are there as kind of a backstop, again, adding an additional layer of perspective and ensuring that that evidence is adequate. Next slide. And then we see here what Leslie has done in this slide deck. Anything that she's got here in red is going to show the difference or the departure between the programs that are used in the 2016 guidelines and the programs that have moved on with the 2023 guidelines. This gets into the general objectives. And then when you see the specific objectives, that's where in the self-study review checklist, when you get into the curriculum table, I've just gotten so used to using the term table 2 when I speak with programs, when they want to talk about that they're making changes, or if they have concerns about having to drop a course or add a course. The first thing we ever have them do is, okay, complete the table 2 based on this proposal, and let's make sure that it aligns with that guidance. So again, you can see here at the bottom, we're talking about how each of these institutions, have their own unique requirements and or constraints that may dictate where their curriculum goes. So, we try our best when it comes to the natural sciences, that these are the same level of instruction that somebody who might be majoring in biology or microbiology or chemistry would take. But again, that's going to be on the program and on the institution to demonstrate that to us. And so we will look to the evidence that they provide us. Next slide. Okay, so here we get into the foundational courses in the natural sciences. You can see there what's written in red is the departure between the 2016 and the 2023 guidance. And again, to the uninitiated, this is where we need to recognize the difference between program calculating its hours in semester hours or in quarter hours. But ultimately, they have to come up with these specific totals. And, it's just getting into the self-study that the programs have prepared. They should be able to show specifically by course name and number how they're meeting these criteria. And this is, again, an important part of getting into that catalog. And, they can report one thing in the self-study, but when you get into the course catalog or when you get into the bulletins, whatever the programs are referring to these as now, this is the kind of evidence that we need folks digging in deep on. So if there is a departure, that it's identified and that our site visit teams can, prepare for those conversations well ahead of their visit. Next slide, please. So here we get into interpretations of the foundational courses. I think as has been pointed out with the Excel spreadsheets there, the self-study checklists, Cindy had noted, it will direct our attention if a laboratory component is required. And I think as far as the science courses, physics is the only one, to my knowledge, that we don't require laboratory component on. But again, it's important to review it using the the checklist, and all that should draw our attention to the specific guidelines and the interpretation. If you have concerns around interpreting based on the evidence they provided and you're not sure, again, speak with the other self-study reviewers. And if neither of you can come up with enough evidence, or you continue to have concerns, reach out to me. But this is now is the time to dig in and find any of these discrepancies before you get out on the road. Any questions or comments so far? Just trying to breeze through these. Okay, next slide, please. Again, we see the difference here in the foundational courses between the 2016 undergraduate requirements and the latest and greatest undergrad requirements. We see what they have written here for their communications portion. It looks like the newest undergrad requirements are very specific to how they want to articulate the communications portion. And again, this is a limited amount of evidence that's going to be available in the self-study review. This is something that we really count on the site visit teams to dig into when it comes to taking a look at any of the work that is done, portfolios, that type of thing that will really give us an idea where they're at with effective public speaking, technical writing, that type of thing. Next slide. Okay, and then we get into the foundational courses. So again, we have you see the difference in the way the 2016 and 2023, there's not a big departure. It looks like they deleted the term programs. And under the mathematics, at a minimum, graduates should have successfully completed a course in college algebra, and higher mathematics courses or calculus are recommended. There's going to be more to come on that from a full council level, but at least as where we stand with the undergraduate requirements now, it should be pretty obvious, and it should be spelled out very plainly in the program's self-study. Next slide. The methodology courses. So these are the big three, the real foundational ones. In my experience, most programs have 3 standalone courses. I've had the opportunity to review some self-studies with programs that combine statistical methods and EPI course. But the main thing is that they're getting enough. And so again, it's very important to look to the catalog for the requirements and to look to the syllabi to make sure that they're covering this very specific information. Any comments, Tanya?
Nope.
Okay. And then we'll move on to the next, the cross-cutting knowledge areas. So we've had the risk assessment, environmental health management, and law have been the long-standing cross-cutting knowledge areas. And then they've added environmental justice and equity into the latest guidelines. Again, there should be sufficient evidence within the self-study as to where they're meeting these requirements. But it will be up to the reviewers to dig in and make sure that they're clearly delineated where they're getting these areas covered. Next slide. Okay, so the technical areas. This is the nice long laundry list. So we start out, you can see the 6 starred ones are the areas that they have, at a minimum, have exposure to those. And then, some coverage of the others. I think as we move into the next slide, we'll kind of see how these lists line up. So list 1 are the required exposure for the following, and then the list 2 are topics. So out of that entire list, they have to have covered 25% of that. So this may be a little confusing at first for folks who have not had an opportunity to review a self-study from a program, but it should be spelled out pretty plainly, and I think it's addressed well in the checklist, the self-study checklist. But if you have any questions, please reach out. And I think the next slide, list 3. So all graduates from undergraduate environmental health science. Oh, let's see here. I'm trying. I was told not to do this verbatim, or we said we weren't going to, but I want to make sure that I'm covering everything in these slides. The main thing here, you can see we've added some elements in the 2023 guidelines, which actually just allows the programs more opportunity to make their programs unique. But this is the list that we will look to make sure that in the self-study that that the curriculum is following this. Next slide, please.
Jason, can I just do kind of a summary here? So for those that are new to this, so really the main difference between the old 2016 requirements and the new 2023 requirements is trying to make it easier for programs to understand what needs to be exposed, definitely, what other items or technical areas along in a list should be exposed, or their students should be exposed to. And then picking from the list, this huge list, you need at least 4 in depth. So the things that changed are just really the organization. Instead of having one big table and having those 3 different things that you need to do with this one table, we've split it into 3 tables. The first table is those that you've got to at least expose all your students to. The second table is now pick 25 additional % of these topical areas and expose your students to that. And the third table is now pick 4 of these and expose them in depth. So not exposed, but in depth. So it's a way to make it communicate like what we were trying to do with the single table, hopefully in a clearer way, so that programs really understand the difference between a couple lectures and like half or full class worth of information on a topical area. Hopefully that like doesn't muddy the waters at all.
No, it's not muddying it, and I think I've been struggling with articulating it, but the most important feature is now with the 2023 guidelines, there is a distinction between how much is considered exposure to the information and how much is considered an in-depth study. And I know we talk about how many hours they have to cover during a given course for that to occur. And I'm losing my train of thought. There was another thing that was, oh, I know what it is. So if this shows up on the table too, this is because it's a required course and it's not elective. Can you speak to that, Tanya, about where that expectation is? I mean, you may choose from electives, but you're required to choose from a set of electives. And so how, when we're reviewing these self-studies, that there could be superfluous information that these programs will throw onto the table too. And we really have to hammer home that these have to be required courses, otherwise, they're not for our consideration.
Yeah, so it does get a little confusing here, for sure. So you have 2 different kinds of programs. You will have programs that say you are required to take air quality, to take a class in built environment, to take a class in food protection, to take a class in water and waste, and then you've got some other electives. Or you have programs that say, here are all of the environmental health, topical, technical courses that you have at, your availability to take whatever. You need to take at least 4. And so you've got those two different ways of approaching the requirement. That is, students must take at least 4 in-depth technical areas. What Jason's referring to then in the table 2 that's presented, which we need to figure out a different way to message like the table numbers, because that in of itself is now being confused with our own tables. But the table that the programs are required to fill out, which has historically been referred to as table 2, you're only supposed to list, programs are only supposed to put in that table those classes that are required, which means that you're going to, if you've got a program that allows them to choose from a list, and they got to choose at least 4, those aren't, the program isn't directing specific classes. So they're not going to show up on the list, which means that you're just going to have to dig a little deeper. Do they actually require 4 technical courses or in-depth study areas? It might not be the entire course. How are they meeting this requirement if it doesn't show up on that table? I think I made it more
Thank you.
confusing, but all right.
All right, it's just some things that our self-study reviewers are going to encounter. And again, if you have issues, please reach out. I'll do my best to help support finding that evidence before we get our site visit team downrange. All right, next slide. Okay, so environmental health technical areas. This is where we were talking about the undergraduate requirement, the 2016 UG requirements. Speak to what it means to have exposure versus in-depth, and then it's very specific under the 2023 requirements, where we start talking about how much time they have to spend within a given course to be considered exposure versus in-depth. This slide is really gets at what Tanya helped me explain about what these different lists mean. So again, if there's any questions, please let me know. Next slide. And now we get into the environmental health practice piece. And of course, as a practitioner, this is near and dear to my heart, not only in the self-study review, but as we're out doing the site visits, taking a look at our undergraduate internships. And of course, the big thing is that it meets that 180 clock hours of total. As far as the field practicum, again, we've told folks to steer clear of doing things within the university, unless of course it's with the university's environmental health and safety program. There is some opportunity there for some research specific projects that may be included, but should not be the only component of this particular experience. So there wasn't a lot of departure in the requirements as they were written in 2016. Again, the main thing is going to be documentation. So our self-study reviewers will see that it's a required course, that type of thing, but it's going to be up to our site visit team to take a look at any of the finished products. So that will be an important piece of the site visit. Next slide. And then let's see here, the interpretation here for the 2023. I'm not quite sure how this differs from the previous slide. Tanya, any amplifying information on that?
No, I don't think so. I think it just further articulates, we've got so many programs and our students are going in so many different directions. It's trying to be aware of that. Not everybody is destined to work at an environmental public health department. We've got students that are going on to graduate studies, you've got students that are going on into industry. And so we need to be flexible to allow those kinds of experiences. And I think that's what this is attempting to do.
Okay. And I think we get into some of the checklists in the next slides. Yeah, so here's an example of a table 2 of a self-study under the 2016 requirements. Next slide. And this is the checklist. We covered that a little bit earlier. Next slide. And then, yes, this gets into the curriculum tab where they actually complete. This is the table 2 for 2016. Next slide. And now the 2023 comparison table here. You see that just some of the minor changes. Next slide. And the 2023 version of the checklist there. Yep. Any questions so far? Next slide. I believe it's Captain Quinn's turn.
I think it is. One of the things I don't think we have anybody who's doing both a self-study review on a graduate and an undergrad this year, but I'll just say if that happens to you, which is likely, you have to get your head in the right space for understanding the differences between how the graduate criteria and the undergraduate criteria are set up. In particular, all the stuff that Jason just covered is much more prescriptive in the undergraduate requirements than it is in the graduate requirements. So what we're looking at in the graduate requirements more is, does it meet the needs and the outcomes that the program has set up and intends for their students to have upon graduation? And so you will see some commonality of courses across different programs, but unlike the undergrad, they're not all going to be the same. And so we kind of group them by what we want the skills for the graduates to have upon completion, as opposed to putting it in, you'll have a specific course in a specific topic area, which is a little bit different, because instead of being more of a, I was back in my auditing days, instead of being like a compliance-based audit where you're saying, did somebody meet these specific requirements? It's more of a qualitative type audit where you're looking at it like, hey, did they meet the intent? And does it align with this general framework that we have set up that are the graduate criteria? So I start with that because you can see here on the listed slide the types of things that we're looking for them to have, and you can see it also reflected if you actually go and look at the criteria as well. But those analytical skills, the statistical skills, the research methods, this is intended to get folks who not only could become practitioners or improve their practitioner skills, but also do research related work. And so there's a combination there. And so the expectation for the level of work obviously is higher because you're talking about graduate students. And as you go through, and if you're a part of an on-site, the site visit, one of the things that is really the most telling to me is that you have to look at the outcome of their culminating experience. I'll get to that in just a second. But beyond those general skills that are related to, these are the competencies that we want them to have: communication skills. That's demonstrated through things like oral presentations and having to actually write something that has a meaningful outcome and to explain a process or whatnot to somebody. You'll see that written into a lot of the course requirements. Pay attention to those things when you're looking over the syllabi, because some of them will be structured where it says this is the particular competency or outcome we're looking for. Some of them it'll be there, but it won't specifically call it out. And so you have to keep in mind what, by having a student do a certain thing, what is the outcome that the program is expecting them to have. The administrative skills, so on. There's also this requirement for general environmental health, and it has to be a focus in at least one of the topic areas, and we'll show that slide in just a minute. But keep in mind that based on the ability of the faculty and the expertise and what the university is trying to accomplish, there may have limited focus or scope in these compared to the broad scope that you see in the undergraduate programs. So there could be a good example. Last year, went to the University of Findlay and did their graduate program, heavy emphasis on occupational safety and health, because that is one of the things that they've set up their program to primarily focus on. But that doesn't mean that you couldn't have ones that are focused on community environmental health, water and wastewater, things of that nature too. So it's more of looking at what they're trying to accomplish and seeing if what they put down actually does that. The culminating experience, you go to an on-site, you're going to get copies of what those culinary experiences are. So we're talking here about a thesis. Some of the programs have thesis options. Some of them will have a capstone project. Some of them will have a portfolio requirement, like here's a scope of different types of materials that demonstrate the type of work that I'm capable of doing based on what I've done in this program. There'll be professional papers, and some of them you actually still have like a written test requirement. So like the old comp exam sort of a thing, which is very frustrating for some of the students based on the ones we've talked to before, but it is what it is. So you're going to get those. You want to look at them and give them a critical eye. Does this actually represent graduate level work? And are they in the course of what they've developed in those products? That's their culminating experience, so to speak. Does it actually show that they accomplished the objectives that we have outlined in the curriculum? And is it aligned with what the university has set up? Does that make sense to everybody? Questions about that? Tanya, you got anything to add? Because it is totally different than doing undergrad.
No, that's a really good summary. I will just add that next, when we bring on the new graduate requirements, it's very different. So I don't think you're presenting those, and that's probably a really good thing because it's going to require a lot of time to explain those.
Yeah, we'll have to put on our CEF type hats because it's much more on the competency base and the outcomes assessments and all of that. Can we go to the next slide, please? So here's that list of the environmental health specialty areas. There has to be at least one of these included. Some of the programs will have different tracks. Some of them have a huge number of different tracks. And so they may offer not only different focus areas as far as topic, but they may also offer different degree types. So you'll have ones that are not a Master's of Science or a Master's of Public Health that also have to maybe meet other requirements like CEF or whatnot. And so they try to fit it together to make sure that they can maintain the dual accreditation. If you ever seen one of those, you have questions about how it's all supposed to fit together, you can always reach out to the folks on the board like myself. Tanya has a lot of experience in this, so does Kai. And it's you can tell that they may have to manipulate their course requirements if they're trying to meet a different objective. And so good example, I'll go back to Findlay from last year, is that one of their tracks, they wanted to make it so that somebody could be able to get the graduate student practitioner certification from the Board of Certified Safety Professionals. In order to do that, you have to take certain prescriptive coursework. And so their whole track in that was set up to meet those requirements, but also to meet the requirements of EHAC. Next slide, please. So just like on the undergrad, we have the review document. You go through and you make the comments. This is very important, especially if you see something that you think is an anomaly, or you see something that you don't quite understand why the university has included it. Those are the types of things we want to track down. We want to see like why, say there's an outlier in one of their course requirements. Maybe like, why are they having this course be a requirement? I can't see that it's necessarily traceable back to analytical skills or some of the other skills that we talked about. If you can flag that, that's very important for us to be able to go back and look at it and say, okay, what are you trying to do here? Does it align? And in most cases, we'll get an answer or response from them and try to piece it all together. But those are some of the more common types of things that you'll see. One of the other things is you'll see very often foundational type courses. And so expectation is that coming into one of these graduate programs, you have foundational type science courses and whatnot that can prepare you to do environmental health. However, some students come from a different undergraduate or prior educational track. And so some universities may also dovetail on top of whatever their actual curriculum requirements for the degree are, what I'd call their prerequisite courses, really, in order to even get into the program. But they will have them kind of like grouped with the program itself. And so you may see that as well. And in those cases, the same thing. What are you trying to accomplish by saying you have to have a basic course in statistics or, analytical methods or whatever, to see how it kind of supports what is in their actual program requirements. And I've seen that at least a couple of times. So those are the main things on the graduate criteria. Like I said, it's a little bit more nebulous than what we see in the on the undergrad side, but certainly if they provide a rationale, a justification, and it seems to fit the mold, we have probably greater flexibility on the graduate side than we do on the undergraduate side. And that's my main takeaways for you today. Questions on any of that?
I will just add that we try not to assign the graduate program reviews or site visits to those that haven't had like direct experience with graduate programs. So if you find yourself having been assigned either now or in the future and you have like no connection with graduate programs, just remind us of that, so that, because we really need people to really understand what is going on at the graduate level to do those reviews.
Yeah, by all means, I think it's the two of us, and I think there was one other person that's going to help with that, the study review for the graduate program this year. But as you get into these, all of us have who've done these before have some experience and can kind of help you figure out like, hey, how it all fits together. And so if we can learn from each other, that's the best way to go, in my opinion. And I'll stop talking now.
Awesome. I think that's it. Tanya, do you want to have any summary words you want to add?
No, just I thank you, Leslie, and of course Jason and Mike for doing a fantastic job of summarizing all of the bazillion pages in a succinct presentation. Would totally, again, emphasize going to them as resources if you have any questions. And there are all of the emails, and you now have that in PowerPoint, and maybe just leaving it open to questions, but looks like we might end 10 minutes early. So there you go. That's great.
No pressure. Any questions anybody has?
Really quickly, I just hopped on a few minutes late. Are you going to email us a PowerPoint, or is it on the site?
I emailed it earlier.
Missed it. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, and I could also put it on the website too.
Yeah, email's fine. Email's fine. I just haven't gotten to it yet. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Actually, we'll put the PowerPoint and the recording link on the website. So for those of you, who have colleagues that did not attend, but you are doing the self-study or the site visit with them, you could refer that to them.
Well, I found the review really helpful, and especially the side-by-side between the two different year requirements, just to be able to see that. So I really appreciate all the time. And then also sorry for having my mic hot while I was making lunch. Sorry about that.
We've already forgotten about that, Cindy.
And like everybody said, we're all here if you have any questions, particularly the new people to the council, and don't hesitate to reach out. And
okay, with that, you got 9 minutes back of your day.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Thanks,
Thanks, everybody.
You.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.
I hope